Post 1. Am I the a-hole for not telling my family which of my children is biologically mine? I have two kids, Clark and Kent. While they have the same father, only one of them is biologically my child. They were born within 6 months of each other. The boys are currently 6, and for various reasons I have full custody of both of them. I didn't speak to anyone in my family for several years, and we got back in touch in 2019. Due to the boys' ages, my family know I couldn't have carried both, unless I have the gestation period of a hamster or the longest labor ever. I have explained to them how this all came to be, but in my explanation I neglected to tell them which was my biological child. Due to my ex having a type, the other women looked enough like me that the boys could pass for twins. Same dark hair, blue eyes, pale skin, and both cleft chins and dimples. My brother jokes that they look like tiny supermen. People who know them refer to them as twins because aside from a few minor differences, they're practically identical. Frankly, if they were closer in age and I'd had full custody of both from the time they were born, I suspect I would have mixed them up a lot as babies. Shortly before Clark's birthday last year, my mom asked if she could see Clark's birth certificate. I asked why and she said she wanted to know the exact time he was born, so I told her. She asked if she could see the certificate anyway. I asked why. She said she just wanted to check. I said I'm his mother, I know when he was born. Then she asked the same thing about Kent and we went through the same conversation all over again. Mom eventually admitted that she just wanted to see the birth mother's name on each certificate, which isn't even how that works, and I told her as much. This led to an argument where my stance was that I'm their mother, biology is irrelevant. Mom says if biology is irrelevant then it's not a big deal to tell her which of them is biologically mine. I said if she's so hung up on biology, then clearly it's a big deal to her and I don't want it to be a big deal, especially as the boys themselves don't know. Mom feels this is incredibly selfish, narcissistic, and overall wrong. She feels that if biology isn't such a big issue, then I should have no problem telling her whether Clark or Kent is my biological son, and that accusing her of potential favoritism or something similar with her bio-grandchild is an unfair judgment with no actual reasoning to it. My boyfriend agrees that I shouldn't tell anyone at least until my sons have decided for themselves if they want to know and want other people to know, but my entire family agree with Mom that I'm being unreasonably selfish and that my actions now are more likely to cause issues than Mom's potential actions later. Am I in the wrong? Reply 1, not the a-hole. If she ever finds out, your mother will favor the biological grandchild, otherwise it wouldn't matter to her, who was on the birth certificate. Reply 2, as an adopted kid, you've got to tell those boys ASAP who's who. The longer you wait, the more it has the potential to do serious damage. Regardless of how wonderful a life they've had with you, one of them is going to feel like they've been living a lie. You can do it in a positive way, my parents did, and I never felt being adopted was anything other than a positive thing. It was no big deal. The older they get, the bigger deal it's going to be. Reply 2, it's not the kids she wanted to hide it from, it's the nosy mother-in-law who seems to need the information when it doesn't have any relevance. The kids should know. But the mother-in-law doesn't need to. The insistent boundary pushing seems to imply a great deal of potential hazard in how mother-in-law will treat the adopted son. Reply 3, ultimately it shouldn't matter. In the Just Normal sub, for moms as well, there's often a theme of placing importance on biological relatives to the point of purposely targeted gestures that have harmful impacts on the children's mental well-being. Why doesn't grandma like me? And their relationship with each other, he gets their love, the parents, they force me to go and be excluded. Stepchildren are ignored, adopted children are considered not real grandchildren, and favoritism causes all sorts of drama that's not worth the headache. You should be warned that just nos rarely change their spots because a lot of it is psychologically and biologically driven, narcissism etc., and can put on a mask if they think they can get you back under their thumb. Be exceedingly cautious with what information you tell her, how much you trust her, and how she then might tell the boys and use them as tools to find out if they don't know. Remind yourself why you went no contact and whether you are truly the a-hole or not will be found there. Reply 4, she doesn't need to know, because this clearly matters far too much to her for it to just be innocent curiosity. If you tell her which child is biologically yours, I can guarantee you that she will 100% show blatant favoritism to her biological grandchild, and might go as far as to bully your other son. Also, unless and until your sons know everything, and are willing to share it, nobody else needs to know. Honestly, I don't know why your relationship with your mother broke down, but judging by the way that she, and the rest of the family, are behaving, I feel like it might be a massive mistake to even rekindle the relationship with her. They all seem toxic, so proceed with extreme caution and don't tell her anything, or leave her alone with either child. Good luck. Not the a-hole. Post 2, am I the a-hole for telling my sister my money? My choice when she said my body. My choice when I asked her to lose weight and she called me a fatphobic? My sister, 22 years old female, and I, 24 years old female, were raised by our single mom. I'm sure she tried her best, but times were tough and she had to work multiple jobs. As a result of that, from a young age, we were left to fend for ourselves and we did not have any healthy eating habits or any cooking skills or moderation. We literally just stuffed ourselves with junk food until we couldn't move. I didn't realize how awful my childhood had been or how unhealthily I have been eating until I was in college. By then, my sister and I were both slightly overweight. I started being more active, riding a bike instead of taking the bus, learned how to cook and started avoiding fast food. As a result, I lost weight and now I am in the healthy BMI range. Ever since then, I tried to get my sister to be more aware of her eating habits and tried to teach her basic cooking etc. While I understood that it was impossible to do that while she was living with mom, I was hoping she would try to change once she left for college. She ended up going to a local community college and continued to stay with our mother. She has also got friends who have created a support system where they actively encourage her to never change. They support healthy at every size, fat admirer, body acceptance religiously. As a result, she is now heavily overweight, bordering on obese. A year ago, my sister started getting severe knee pains and doctor said that she might have to undergo surgery if doesn't lose weight. My sister didn't listen to doctor's advice. She/her friends have convinced themselves that the doctor was biased and that my sister's knee problems weren't weight related, because BMI is bullshit, and that the doctor was just being fatphobic. I tried really hard to change her mind and it led to a huge fight. In the end, I gave up on her and told her to do whatever she wanted. A year has gone by, she had gained more weight, her pains have worsened and the doctor has said that she needs surgery. Neither my mom nor my sister cannot afford the surgery. I can afford the surgery but it would wipe out everything I have saved. They called to ask me for help. I got mad and told my sister this could have been avoided if only she listened to the doctor a year ago. She then accused me of being fatphobic and told me that it was her body and she can do as she chooses to and I had no right to try and force her to lose weight if she doesn't want to. I kinda lost it. I told her that it's my money and I can choose where and how I spend it. I told her that I am not gonna drain all my savings because she was too lazy to exercise or because she can't stop stuffing her mouth. I hung up on her after that. My mom and my sister have been texting, calling me. They are asking me to apologize for being fatphobic and to pay for the surgery. I haven't responded and I don't plan to. Am I the a-hole here? Reply 1, not the a-hole, you're exactly right, it is your money and your choice to spend it how you want. Your sister did this to herself fully knowing what the consequences would be. She needs to learn to deal with the consequences of her actions like a grown-up instead of just throwing a tantrum because you won't give her the money. Reply 2, not the a-hole, not only this but what's the point of paying for the surgery, if her sister's philosophy is my body my choice? This just means she's going to continue to gain weight and ruin her new knees. Reply 3, she's even unlikely to recover from the surgery. You need to follow the doctor's advice post-surgery to be able to recover, that involves some life changes. It's likely that she won't follow medical advice and prolong her stay at the hospital, or even end up having to be readmitted multiple times due to complications. That'll rack up hospital debt even further. Why her friends don't pitch in. Reply 4, you are in the money. I work in medical insurance so I am aware of the stages behind claims and the stages of condition, diagnosis, surgery/treatment, recovery, follow-up. If she doesn't listen to doctor advice, she isn't going to listen to a physiotherapist either. Her knees will get worse. Surgery on knees, more often than not, does not make them better. It treats the source of the problem but comes with its own complications and does not cure pain. Physio and looking after yourself does. If anything, this is just going to be a gateway to her getting addicted to pain relief. She will be discharged with instructions on looking after herself and what pain relief she is to take. Won't surprise me if she disregards all of that and just knocked back tramadol like candy because she's in an endless loop of pain. Basically, don't pay for the surgery. It won't help her as long as she has this attitude. Reply 5, you didn't even mention the worst part. If she continues to not follow advice, she'll never walk again because her knees will never recover. Not to mention the risk of the surgery because of her weight. She could even die on the operating table. My friend did. Not the a-hole, you're not trying to shame her. You're trying to help her because you realize you know no different as kids. If her weight was purely medical it'd be a different matter, but it's choice. She chooses to put herself in this position. Post 3, am I the a-hole for not reassuring my boyfriend I was fine after he didn't help me after my car broke down by his house? I was driving to the store and my car crapped out on me. Turns out the alternator failed and the engine stalled out. I pulled over to the side of a remote road. It was cold out and I wasn't dressed for the weather without the car's heater. Dumb of me to not wear a warmer coat or think to put a blanket in my car for the winter just in case. But it was supposed to be a quick errand. I called my boyfriend who lived very close to where I was broken down, and he didn't pick up. I texted him saying I was broken down and I needed a ride. Could he help? He said no, he had a friend visiting. I said it was freezing cold and I needed to get out of the cold fast because the car heat was broken too. He said, can't you ask a friend, this is a bad time. I called the friend who was 35 minutes away and he got on the road right away, and we made plans to have his brother who works for a towing company get it for cheap the next day as a favor. We hung out for a few hours and then I went to bed early. I accidentally left my phone in his car so when he left he took it along. The next morning I couldn't find my phone and sent an email to my friend to ask if he'd seen it. He replied and said he found it in his car and he could bring it back on the weekend. I thanked him and apologized for making him make the trip twice. Anyway, I worked through the day and only checked my social media after the workday. I saw some panicked messages from my boyfriend on my Facebook asking what had happened. I didn't answer his texts for 24 hours after the last thing I sent was, can you please come pick me up? It's freezing cold and I need to get out of the cold fast. Car here is broken and I wasn't picking up my phone or answering texts or social media messages. Then he went for a drive and found my car abandoned in the dirt off the side of the road. He was convinced I had been ignoring him to spite him for not leaving right away to get me. He hasn't realized how serious it was. And he had expected if I had trouble getting a friend to help I'd call him and tell him I didn't have another option. I said I wasn't being petty, I was just trying to deal with my own shit when my car crapped out on me. And I honestly wasn't thinking about him at all after he brushed off me asking for help. He said that I was stupid for not thinking that he'd be worried to be ghosted for a day after saying I was in trouble. Am I the a-hole for not telling my boyfriend I was okay after he didn't want to help me after my car crapped out? Edit, I broke things off. Seriously, thank you to everyone who commented and told me this shit wasn't normal or okay. I thought I'd feel bad ending things because I really wanted things to work out, but honestly I feel like there's a huge weight off my shoulders. Reply 1, not the a-hole. Post his response on social media so all of his friends can see how reliable he is. I know it's winter, and you're my significant other, but my friend and I are playing video games, so I guess you'll just have to die in a ditch 5 minutes from my house. Reply 2, my husband just said no matter where he was or what he was doing, if my car broke down he would immediately come help. And has now I think of it. Reply 3, exactly this. I had my engine blow up in my crappy little Buick Encore. I narrowly missed hit a semi as well when it went. It was wickedly cold with a harsh wind at -25 Fahrenheit, on New Year's Day driving back home. I had just visited my long-distance relationship fiancé and closed our apartment. I was over an hour out of his town, and even though he was at work, he talked me through everything as well as just to calm me down as I ended up in a ditch when everything went. We got it figured out by his talking me through it and I got it to limping drive it out. Then he got his grandma came to stay with me until my folks, who were 5 hours away, came to get me. But he never stopped talking to me, and got the arrangements with his grandma to come get me as well as a reliable tow, used OnStar to try to get me to the next exit so his grandma could find me. Plus what your hubby did for you, that's what real men who love and respect their person who are also their protectors do. My heart hurts for original poster that she or they didn't have that to trust or take comfort in. It was my fiancé's calm voice and help that got me through as I had an anxiety attack in the car after. Reply 4, my guy was down in Vegas and heard my car broke down. He immediately contacted me, asked me if I was okay and if I needed help. And that was even when he was incredibly drunk, bachelor party trip. Poor op, dude was 5 minutes away and was not concerned for her at all literally. Reply 5. Wow. My ex was pretty much the opposite of this. I had what turned out to be a belt going out on my car when driving home from work one night, worked nights, and I had a lot of trouble steering. So I called my now ex, because he knew a thing or two about cars and was still up and in the same time zone as me, and he didn't answer. I called a couple more times over the rest of my drive, thankfully a mostly straight road, but those turns were awful, and he threw a little hissy fit over my multiple calls to him because he thought I was just trying to demand his attention when he was clearly with his friends. Granted, all he could have done at the time was talk to me while I was driving, but now almost 9 years later I still remember that night. Post 3. Am I the a-hole for not splitting my son's paychecks with his two brother? Sorry for the title. I wasn't sure what to title this. This seems like a no-brainer to me, but in real life I'm finding myself in the minority of that opinion. I have one bio son, 17, from my first marriage and one stepson, 19. They both work part-time in retail, and they started around the same time. My current wife's son started working first due to age and just landing a job first. When my son started his job, I started taking 30% of his pay. I matched it 100%, so if I took 150, I added another 150 to it. I never told my son why I was taking his money, and I understand that may be wrong to some people, but I stand by my decision. My wife and I don't mix finances. She was in a past abusive relationship, and so I refused to push that subject. However, I did tell her I was doing this, and asked her to give it some thought for her child. My wife kind of shocked by it and felt I was doing something terrible by taking his money regardless of the reasoning behind it. She didn't pass harsh judgment or treat me differently, but she certainly thought it was unusual and unnecessary. Well, my son's birthday 18th is in 2 weeks and he's been talking about a car, and how much he could afford. I laid the entire thing out for him and let him know his budget was much larger than he was thinking. No rules, as it's his money, but I had an opinions if he would listen. If not, irrelevant, it's his money. My son was ecstatic, and I have to say I about cried when I saw him tear up and freak out. First time my nearly 18-year-old picked me up and nearly broke my back from a hug. Lol. Well, when my stepson heard about this, he felt it was unfair and my son was being favored. His mother felt the car my son had chosen was unnecessary, and I could help her son with a vehicle by stealing from my son's fund. I refused and told her that was ridiculous, and she had the same opportunity that I did. She's now saying because my son's education is paid for, it just makes it less fair. His grandparents are paying for college, so I think that argument is moot. My son has told my wife and his stepbro that most of the money is from his personal checks, and they aren't getting a penny of that. Furthermore, as the money I added, they should be arguing between themselves and regarding why his mom didn't save while she could had. Her parents and some friends have brought it up, and my laughing has turned to anger. I'm getting sick of it, and before I shut it down I want to make sure I'm not losing my mind. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Guys, it's in the post. I did tell my wife why I was taking the money and what I was planning to do with it. It was never a secret.